Gaius Julius Caesar, the man, the myth, the walking god complex. His name is synonymous with genius, military brilliance, and political mastery. We're told he was a once-in-a-generational talent who single-handedly dragged Rome from a crumbling republic into a glorious empire. It's a great story. It's also dangerously simplistic. The truth is, Caesar's biggest triumphs were matched only by the sheer, magnificent stupidity of his mistakes. His career wasn't a masterclass in strategy. It was a tightrope walk over a volcano, and he kept stopping to admire his own reflection. When I say stupid, I don't mean he couldn't solve a crossword puzzle. Caesar was brilliant. That was the problem. His particular brand of stupidity was arrogance so profound it functioned as a cognitive disability. It's the kind of mistake a genius makes, not a miscalculation on the battlefield, but a fundamental failure to understand that other people also have thoughts, ambitions, and a breaking point. Caesar didn't just ignore warning signs, he seemed to believe they didn't apply to him. The laws of physics, politics, and human resentment were for lesser mortals. Let's start with Britain, 55 BCE. Why invade? For the dignitas, the personal prestige. It was a PR stunt. Caesar wanted to be the first Roman general to cross the Channel, something so audacious it would make him a legend. He sailed late in the campaigning season with 2 legions, which is like planning a beach holiday in October. Surprise! The British weather was shockingly British. His cavalry couldn't land, and the tides, a completely novel concept to the Romans apparently, smashed his beached ships to pieces. It was an expensive, embarrassing mess. So, did he learn his lesson? Of course not. He came back the next year, 54 BCE, but this time with a ridiculously oversized fleet of 800 ships. It's the classic overcorrection. He'd figured out the more boats part of the equation, but had completely missed the why are we even here part. He marched inland, beat some local tribes led by Cassivellaunus, and got some promises of tribute that nobody ever intended to pay. He left having gained no territory, no meaningful allies, and no treasure besides some freshwater pearls. The whole venture was a net loss disguised as a victory. Fast forward to 48 BCE. Caesar has just defeated his rival Pompey in the Civil War. He follows him to Egypt, only to be presented with Pompey's head in a jar. Mission accomplished, right? Time to go home and run the Republic. Instead, he decides to get involved in a domestic dispute between the 21-year-old Cleopatra and her 13-year-old brother-husband Ptolemy XIII. This is like a world leader intervening in a celebrity divorce. He had absolutely no strategic reason to stay, but the allure of a queen and a treasury was too much for his ego to resist. His brilliant decision to play marriage counselor resulted in him being besieged in the royal palace of Alexandria. He had 1 legion, the Legio VI Ferrata, against the entire Egyptian army. The master tactician, the conqueror of Gaul, got himself trapped in a city he didn't know, surrounded by hostile forces, all because he decided to take a side quest. For months, he was fighting for his life in street-to-street combat, at one point having to swim to a rescue ship while holding his famous commentaries above the water. He almost died, not in a glorious battle, but in a messy urban brawl he started. And yes, this is where the famous Library of Alexandria gets singed. To break the naval blockade, Caesar ordered his men to burn the Egyptian ships in the harbor. The fire, being fire, spread. It likely destroyed warehouses near the docks that stored scrolls, possibly tens of thousands of them meant for the library or for export. So he didn't purposefully burn the Great Library itself, but he did cause an irreversible loss of knowledge as a direct consequence of a completely avoidable war. It's the historical equivalent of accidentally deleting the internet while trying to win an argument online. After finally sorting out Egypt and mopping up the rest of the civil war, Caesar returns to Rome. The Senate, terrified and obsequious, names him Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. A normal person might exercise that power with a bit of subtlety. Caesar decided subtlety was for the weak. He became the first living Roman to put his own face on a coin, an honor previously reserved for gods and long-dead ancestors. It screamed, "I am a monarch." And for a republic founded on a deep-seated hatred of kings, this was a political car alarm that would not turn off. The tipping point was the festival of Lupercalia in February of 44 BCE. His loyal consul, Mark Antony, runs up to him and tries to place a royal diadem on his head. Caesar, with practiced theatricality, refuses it. The crowd cheers. Antony tries again. Caesar refuses again. This was meant to be a brilliant PR move, to show everyone he had no kingly ambitions. But what the senators saw was not a man refusing a crown, but a man testing the waters to see if he could get away with accepting it. The whole stunt backfired spectacularly. His general attitude toward the Senate didn't help. He treated the most powerful men in Rome like his personal interns. He expanded the Senate from 600 to 900 members, packing it with his loyal soldiers and even some nobles from Gaul. To the Roman aristocracy, letting a barbarian into the Senate was a sacrilege. He devalued the very institution he was supposed to be leading, turning it into a rubber stamp for his own decrees. People don't tend to appreciate it when you make their life's work irrelevant. There was one incident that, according to the historian Suetonius, sealed his fate. A delegation of senators came to the Temple of Venus Genetrix to bestow yet another list of honors upon him. Custom, decency, and basic respect demanded that he stand up to greet them. He didn't. He remained seated, casually receiving them as if they were his subjects. This single act of staggering arrogance was the final insult. It was a clear message: you are my inferiors. For men who saw themselves as the inheritors of a 500-year-old republic, that was a declaration of war. Which brings us to the Ides of March, 44 BCE. The universe basically tried everything short of dropping an anvil on his head. For weeks, the soothsayer Titus Vestricius Sperina had been telling him to beware the Ides of March. On the morning of the 15th, Caesar saw him on the steps of the Senate and joked, "The Ides of March have come." Sperina, in what must be the most chilling comeback in history, replied, "Aye, Caesar, but not gone." He was literally told the future and decided to mock it. The night before, his wife Calpurnia had a nightmare that their house was collapsing and that she was holding his bleeding, murdered body. She begged him not to go to the Senate that day. The omens were piling up. His sacrificial animals were found to have no hearts, his prized horses wept, and a tiny kingbird was torn to pieces by larger birds in the forum. any sane person would have called in sick. Caesar was convinced to go by one of the conspirators, Decimus Brutus, who basically told him not to let a woman's dream make him look weak. This is the most infuriating part. As he was walking to his death, a Greek teacher named Artemidorus, who knew about the plot, handed him a small scroll. It contained a detailed list of every conspirator and a full description of the plan. He told Caesar, "Read this, Caesar, alone and quickly, for it contains a matter of great importance to you." Caesar took the scroll, but he was immediately swamped by other petitioners, and he never opened it. The complete plan to save his life was physically in his hand, and he was too busy to read it. Hubris, thy name is paperwork. And so he entered the Senate, was surrounded, and stabbed 23 times. The great irony, according to ancient sources, is that only one wound was actually fatal. A whole room full of senators, and their plan was basically everyone shank him at once. It was brutal, messy, and pathetic. His stupidest mistake wasn't Britain or Egypt or even ignoring the omens. His final, fatal mistake was believing he had become more than a man. He thought he was untouchable, that the rules of Rome no longer applied to him. The senators, with 23 reminders, showed him just how mortal he really was. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!